Welcome to another episode of the Hoop Site Podcast. My name is Alex Kennedy, and joining me today is a good friend, Mo Evans, a 9-year NBA veteran. He was the vice president of the NBA Players Union. Mo, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and make your acquaintance, man. I'm really proud of you and look forward to having a good conversation.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. You're about to go play golf with George Gervin, so we're not going to keep you for too long. First of all, how's your golf game, and have you played with George before?
Man, Iceman is legendary, not only in basketball but also in on the golf links. So I'm kind of I want to say nervous, but I'm not sure how I'm going to hit it today. So I'm going to try not to succumb to the pressure and see if I can get one up on old ice before why still out here playing.
Got butterflies like it's before a big game.
Yeah, man.
So I want to talk about your NBA career. You had a very interesting NBA career. You bounced around the NBA quite a bit, but you were always a guy that teams brought in because you were a great presence in the locker room. You contributed on the floor. You were kind of that guy that did it all, the consummate pro. And I also want to get into your role as the VP of the Players Union, because I think that's what a lot of people know you as. You were on TV during the 2011 lockout, and you were one of the faces of the union during that time. But I want to start with your NBA career. You were undrafted in 2001. You played 10 games for the Minnesota Timberwolves, and then you actually went overseas. You played in Greece and Italy before making it back to the NBA. What was that experience like, going overseas, playing in Greece and Italy? How did that kind of help prepare you for the NBA, and what was it like being abroad?
Man, it was a great experience for me. I mean, at that time, I don't know how much I appreciated it initially when I went to go play in Athens, Greece for Olympiacos, but because I came from obviously playing, with the Timberwolves and Kevin Garnett, and just, I signed a 2-year deal, so I wasn't quite as versed in the CBA as I am now. I didn't realize that my deal was not guaranteed fully in the second year. So when they released me, that obviously that left a chip on my shoulders, and I was a little embarrassed and uncertain of where my career was going to go at the time. So when I went over to Athens, man, I had a big chip on my shoulder, and it really showed in my play. But I channeled, redirected that energy, I guess you could say, to help my team, which was in 7th place at the time. We ended up going straight to like number 1 or 2. And then the second year I came back and played for Benetton Treviso. That's when I had Ettore Messina, who's, the assistant to Greg Popovich right now with the Spurs. He was my head coach, and man, I won all kinds of awards. Player of the Year. I was, MVP at the All-Star game. I mean, I was in 3-point shootouts, dunk contests. It was just like a really awesome experience playing with Andreas Bargnani and Tyus Edney and Jorge Garbajosa. There's so many players who end up going over to the NBA. But it was great to have that trust from that coach at that time.
Yeah, that helped your confidence. I mean, after playing 10 games as a rookie, then going over there, winning all those awards. Were you ever worried, though, that you wouldn't make it back to the NBA? I know some guys are scared to go overseas because they feel like they're not going to make it back. You're kind of out of sight, out of mind. Was that ever a worry for you? I mean, once you start winning awards, I'm sure that worry went away. But initially, was that kind of a fear?
No, it wasn't a fear for me. And that, I really felt like my talents were being underused in the NBA, which was always a challenge for me. A lot of people didn't realize, I led the country in scoring when I was a sophomore. At least I was a top 10 in scoring in the country nationally. So I was a scorer coming into the NBA. Everybody discounted my scoring abilities by acting like I was just a utility player. But the reason that I was able to be so valuable to those different teams is because of the fact that I could score from a lot of different areas. So they never ran plays for me. So if that was a corner 3 that I would get just by default because I was in that position, I had to maximize a corner 3. If it was in transition, then I could go in and dunk and do different things. But it was like, those roles, and you see a lot of these superstars, as they transition from being a superstar, now they have to be condensed into a lesser role. You see it with Adrian Peterson in football. They don't like it. But guys like ourselves, for the better part of our career, we had to, really, scale back on the things that our capabilities that we could do so that we could support Kobe Bryant and other players. And not to say that we would have, we were better than Kobe Bryant or any of those things, because Kobe is legendary. But it was a lot of times that, we had to play within ourselves so we could help our team play more effectively and maximize the opportunities.
Now, you almost played a decade in the NBA. Do you feel like that ability to make those sacrifices and take on a lesser role is the difference between, the guys that flame out or end up overseas and the guys that have success in the NBA? Because like you said, I think the NBA is all about opportunity. You could have been a leading scorer. There's an alternate timeline out there somewhere where you're a star of a team and you're scoring the ball at a high clip and you're getting tons of touches. Do you think that's kind of the difference between, the successful journeyman and the guys that don't make it?
100%. I mean, there's a lot of talented guys out there. I mean, one example, and by name, I mean, Jordan Crawford. He was one of the kids that I played with in Minnesota. He's one of the most talented players I've played with, and not like Kobe is in those types of talent, but in terms of he could really score the ball at a high clip, and he had such a high basketball IQ, but he couldn't channel those competitive juices to fit within the team framework a lot of times, and then he would often get moved. And now you see him on the end of benches and, playing with Golden State, playing a little bit with Boston, playing with different, teams that he's been a part of. But I'm like, this kid should be a starter in the NBA or somewhere within somebody's consistent rotation, contributing, making, in this new NBA landscape, at least $10 to $12 million a year with his skill set. But yet he's underachieving because he's unable to at this time, fit in and make those sacrifices necessary to fit into somebody's team.
Yeah, people don't realize the gap between the star players and, the sixth man or the bench guys isn't nearly as big as, people would think. Obviously the gap between a guy like LeBron James or Kevin Durant is huge, but, there's certainly a smaller gap when you talk about, some of these teams' leading scorers and the guys that are toward the end of the bench. I think that's one of the misconceptions about the NBA. You're obviously one of the guys that were able to stick in the NBA because of not only your contributions on the floor, but what you brought in the locker room, what you brought from a leadership standpoint. What are the keys to being a successful journeyman? You kind of mentioned being, the sacrifices you have to make, but, as you kind of bounced around the NBA, you played for Minnesota, Sacramento, Detroit, Los Angeles, Orlando, Atlanta, Washington. There were tons of teams that brought you in. What are the keys to being a successful journeyman?
No, I mean, it's first and foremost, I think you have to be willing to, you got to be a value add to their team. Nobody brings people in just for, just for optics. And so, they brought me in to be to contribute to their team and their success and to be able to fit within that plan. And then you have the more skills that you can bring, the more intangibles, whether that's being a locker room guy, whether that's being somebody, who's valuable in the community, whether that's some of the alternative things you can bring. I mean, those matter. But what you can't do is you can't be a distraction to the team. Those people who are distractions to the team and don't fit within the culture, they get them out of there rather quickly.
Now, I want to ask you, what's the best organization that you played for and the worst organization you played for? I know it's a tough question, but, obviously there's some organizations that are run perfectly. There's some organizations where there's some chaos and dysfunction behind the scenes. And, some of the people that were involved in those, decisions aren't necessarily still there from the time you were there. But, if you had to say best and worst organization, what would which organizations would you single out?
Well, I mean, it's hard for me to say worst because all the teams I played for, fortunately for me, they all went to the playoffs, with the exception of Washington at the time.
You were very fortunate.
And so I was very fortunate. I always was able to go to teams that had great management in place, some better than others. I would say that one of the better organizations that I played for was obviously the Lakers. They know they're very intentional about their brand. They bring in, they're all about, building a winning culture. And that's why, they've had the likes of Kobe Bryant's and Magic Johnson's and all these great talents over the years. And, for us, sorry about the noise on the golf course a little bit, but no, so the Lakers are definitely one of those better organizations. And believe it or not, the Orlando Magic was one of my favorite organizations that I played for as well. At that time we had Dwight Howard, we had, Hedo Turkoglu, we had so many people. And I just remember getting traded from the Lakers and the level of support that they gave not only me as a player, but my family at the time, and those were the things that really distinguish one organization from another.
Yeah, and you played really well in Orlando. I'm obviously based out of Orlando, so I was always wishing you were playing more minutes and getting more playing time. It seemed like every time you were on the floor, you made the most of your opportunity. Now I want to talk about being vice president of the Players Union. That's a big role, obviously. How did you become VP of the union? And it's one of those things that I don't think fans realize. You're not paid any extra to do that, but you put a lot of time and energy into that position. How did that role come about, and what was that like, kind of taking on that role?
No, I mean, I appreciate that. Just even acknowledging that it is unpaid, and a lot of people, I think they misunderstand that. They think that there's some kind of benefit that we get externally for being a part of the union, and that was one of the big challenges that we had. With Mr. Hunter and some of the allegations was that somehow, me personally, I benefited. I never benefited from being a part of the union. I did it because it was something that, I was voted by my peers to represent our team and the interests of our team and the collective interests of our league, relative to our players. So those are things that, I was really proud to be able to be a part of and be able to contribute, especially as one of the lead negotiators during the 2011, NBA labor discussions, and that have led to such great results. So I'm really proud of the results that we were able to achieve even from that time.
Yeah, I want to get into that. I want to talk about what a typical day was like negotiating. I want to talk about Adam Silver and the role that he played in negotiations. But, this current CBA, the league is thriving. Player contracts are enormous, especially after the new TV deal. Teams are selling for insane prices now. How proud are you to have played a role in that?
Man, I'm extremely proud that things worked out the way that they did. And when you look at the proof, as they say, the proof is in the pudding. Man, I mean, look at the contracts that players are getting now, and the valuations. The Rockets just sold for $2.3 billion. I mean, it's like these were a lot of the things that we were explaining to the players is the values that, the value of the contracts were going to go up and the things of that nature. Those were the things that we were really excited about,
Let's go back to the lockout, because I think, fans obviously hated it. They were missing basketball a lot, but, you were in there for long days. You were negotiating with the owners and with David Stern and Adam Silver. What was a typical day like for you during those labor talks? How boring are those meetings? What goes on during those meetings?
What's funny is I think, the thing that was interesting to me was the meetings would be, I'm sure you would remember during the time, it'd be 10 hours on the ticker, and they say, oh man, they're meeting for 10 hours. And dude, half the time we would caucus and go to our corners and they go to their quarters, and we come and meet for 30 minutes, and they say, you guys ready to talk? And we say, yeah, and they say, well, here's what we had to offer. And it wouldn't be something that was acceptable. And they say, well, you guys aren't ready. And they go back to their side and we go back to our side for about 5 or 6 hours. And then we come back. And the needle moves so infrequently, during that time that it was just really funny to me that during it's nothing like what most people think it would be like.
Now, there was a lot of drama around that lockout. There were reports that Derek Fisher may have been talking to the owners and trying to get a deal for himself. There were allegations like that. And then toward the end of the lockout, actually, Derek wasn't representing you guys at the podium during press conferences. It was really you and Billy Hunter giving the press conferences. What was going on behind the scenes during that time, and how frustrating was that? Obviously going through those labor talks is already tough enough whenever, you have certain players wanting to cave and you're trying to get a good deal. But with all the rumors and everything going on with Derek, how did that kind of make things even more difficult?
Yeah, I mean, it's already difficult to unite 450 players under one, united front, whereas there's only 30 owners. So it's easy, and they're more sophisticated, more savvy, more
and they're
experienced.
richer.
Yeah, they're wealthier. They don't have the same pressures. And so with that said, it was very difficult for us to all maintain unity throughout the entire ordeal. And obviously, again, there's a lot of allegations about what happened with Derek Fisher. And at that time, it was just in the best interest for our players, for Billy to take more of an active lead, myself as well, But I mean, the challenge is, the great thing is that we got a positive result. I mean, there's a lot of nasty allegations that went out with regards to Derek and those that went out with regards to Billy. And the thing is, I look at is a lot of the proof, again, is kind of in the things that have manifested post-career. I mean, you see Derek dance with the Stars. You see him with a 5-year contract with the Knicks and things of that nature. But you see Mr. Hunter, what's challenging to me is that he still hasn't been compensated for, his contributions. He's still fighting for his contract that they're saying is invalidated. Yet, the contract the CBA has already proven itself.
Now, if the reports about Derek, possibly striking a side deal with the owners was true, do you think there's a direct correlation between that and Chris Paul becoming the new president of the union? It seems like, with Chris Paul as the president, LeBron James as the vice president, it seems like, you guys as players really made an effort to say, okay, let's get some superstars that really can't be swayed, that have money, that have endorsement deals, that, don't need to go strike a side deal. Do you think that was a response to some of the rumors out there that were surrounding Fisher?
I actually think that, Chris learned a lot. CP3, he learned a lot during that time. He was one of the active players who was a part of it. And, we appreciated having him there. LeBron came in support every once in a while. And for him to decide to take on an active role while he's, means so much to the game. I mean, I give both those guys a lot of credit. But I think, they've already divided up the powers. Now, Michelle Roberts, she has a totally different role than what Billy had. Billy was the player ambassador and he ran the union. They divided that role into two when Roger Mason Jr. took over. And right. they kind of segregated it for whatever reason. And so now it's, again, players, it's optics for players to be on one side and the union staff to be on another. They got so many more employees in there. And, it's just like I said, I mean, the deal, the benefits of the deal is from what we negotiated in 2011. They ratified and made a few amendments, but it's the same deal from 2011. No one opted out because it's too lucrative for both sides. So that's what seems to be lost in the shuffle is that, people aren't giving credit to where for the things that the contributions that group made for this deal. And so many of those guys are not even in the league anymore.
Yeah, that leads to my next question. Do you think that there's going to be another lockout on the horizon? Because obviously, there's so much money to fight over now when you talk about, player contracts being so high, team values being so high. But then at the same time, you had an ESPN report come out today that said there were still a number of teams that are losing money. Do you think we're going to see another lockout, or do you think the league is thriving so much that it would be foolish to interrupt that?
No, I don't think that. I don't foresee. Again, that's just my opinion. I don't foresee another lockout on the horizon because these guys are it's too lucrative for both sides. And what I do think is going to be a challenge is for these valuations of these teams to continue to skyrocket to the level that they are. Because I don't know what's going into creating a $2.3 billion valuation for one team while other teams have been sold for $400 million and $100 million and things of that nature. So how do you go about recouping that kind of investment in this game? So the game is obviously in a really great place, but I don't foresee every team's valuation being able to sustain $3 and $4 billion valuations as the game goes on.
Right. Now, just a few more questions for you. Obviously, David Stern was the commissioner whenever you guys were negotiating, but Adam Silver played a really big role in those negotiations as well. There were some days where he took over completely and was really running the meeting. What was it like negotiating against Adam Silver? And do you think the league is in good hands moving forward with Commissioner Silver?
Yeah, I think that Adam Silver, I mean, he literally learned and gleaned from, David Stern. David Stern is obviously, he's a brilliant businessman. I had a lot of respect for him throughout that time, throughout my time in the league, especially during labor negotiations because of how much knowledge he had, especially related to the sports industry and how to fully monetize it. So a large reason why the game is in the place that it is because of the leadership that we had on both sides. The experience that, again, Mr. Hunter brought as a former athlete, NFL player and things of that nature. And then David Stern with his business savvy and his mindset to have enough vision to see where this league could go. It's manifesting now. And so Adam is just going to continue to execute that game plan that Stern put into place.
Your final NBA season was the 2011-12 season. You played with Washington. Was it frustrating for you after, getting the CBA together and, obviously it's been successful. Was it frustrating to be out of the NBA so quickly after that? Because, you want to continue to play. I remember we talked about that at the time. Was it frustrating not to be in the league? And do you think that maybe your role with the union, going against these owners and being on the other end of the negotiating table, did that maybe play a role in some of that and the fact that you weren't, signed by other teams?
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, it definitely impacted my ability to continue to earn and play in the NBA. But, to be honest, I knew that the writing was on the wall just from how active of a role that I've played. And being an entrepreneur, businessman myself, I know, certain things like that have repercussions. And that for me, I don't have any regrets. I did exactly what was right and what was true for the situation, was to represent the best interests of the guys in this league going forward and to make sure that I left it better than when I found it. And so I'm excited for those players who are able to benefit and bless their families and things of that. And I support the league fully, going forward.
Well, that's a great mindset to have. And I want to end on this. You have a company every level of success where you help current players. Talk about what you kind of do with your company and how you work with, not only NBA players, but all professional athletes. What kind of services are you offering players with your company, every level of success?
Man, I appreciate that. I mean, we just got mentioned in Forbes, yesterday, an article that just was released there. I'm going to be speaking at the crowdfunding conference in October the 23rd. Forbes is going to be there. Microsoft is a sponsor. We offer to players just brand management services that help players better monetize their personal brands throughout the duration of their career and beyond. One of the biggest challenges with our NBA players and even professional athletes is many of us don't know how to monetize our brand aside from our roles that we play in the NBA and NFLs, et cetera. So, we help those guys take more ownership of their brand and just better be stewards of the opportunities that are out there for players. And so I look forward to bringing and launching this company, and just the opportunity that we have in October with, at the in Las Vegas with Forbes and Microsoft. It's going to be a great opportunity.
Well, good luck. Obviously, these players are in good hands. You had a long career. You know what it takes to stick in the NBA. Obviously, you know the CBA left and right because you helped put it together. And you're obviously a guy that, these players can trust, and you're going to help a lot of guys. So congratulations with your company and your success. And go out there and have a good round of golf against Iceman.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Brian. I'll talk to you guys.
Thank you, Mo, for joining us today. You can find all episodes of the Hoopsite podcast on Audio Boom, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, and, of course, hoopsite.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.